my name is Vip Vipperman, and I'm excited today to be back on the Back in the Bold podcast. Today in the studio, we have Wes Lyons. Wes, good to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to this conversation. Wes, you're based in DFW, is that right?
I am.
Awesome. So not too far away. A few miles down the road, I imagine. So Wes, you've already built things like Eagle Venture Fund. People are started to recognize your name when it comes to Eagle Freedom Fund and the Clapham Accelerator. But today we're having a conversation about something new and different. Tell me a little bit about what's going on at Eagle and what you're excited about.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the Eagle Freedom Alliance, which is a coalition of over $100 billion of public markets investors using their voice together to accelerate solutions to human trafficking in the public markets. And the origin story goes back a couple of years. We together, you and I have been part of the Eagle Freedom Fund series where we've deployed well over $25 million now into solutions to human trafficking in the marketplace. And that's put us right in the middle of amazing conversations, and our involvement in the Clapham Accelerator have given us a really good pulse on many solutions to human trafficking that are accelerating and incredibly exciting. And in many cases, the moment is ripe for significant acceleration into what really large companies are doing. And one of the examples has been our company that we're part of, Evidencity, is one of the market leaders, if not the market leader, in mapping from where exploitation is happening. We call it dirt to consumer, like up to where people consume it. And they had just a couple of years ago shown us the capability to be able to map from the first case of convicted labor trafficking out of Latin America up to public markets. We're like blown away by their capabilities. I just read Cobalt Red, which Siddharth does just a breathtaking job of unpacking the atrocities in the cobalt markets in Democratic Republic of Congo. And it's really deeply intertwined with tantalum. And so we came to Evidencity and said, hey, could you map the atrocities that are happening for these hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands of children in extreme child labor up to the public markets? And this was part of our collaboration with the Refugee Investment Network. And we came together as a group of investors that said, philanthropically, we want to know the answer to this question. Amazing investors came together, funded that, and showed there were 104 companies in the S&P 500 that were directly acquiring the tantalum that these children were mining. And there was a lot of movement around that, and a movement to find solutions. And in the process of our network searching for solutions, we came across Power Resources International, and our friends at Talenton had backed them. We were friends for a number of years, and were just blown away by how good their solution was in the midst of all the atrocities happening in East Africa. There's a brilliant light of deeply integrated and beautiful sourcing of tantalum out of the DRC and Rwanda specifically. They're using live video feeds. They're using low Earth orbit satellites and blockchain. Just a beautiful case of we can source beautifully out of the DRC. And we asked them who's their first customer. They're like, oh, a little company called Apple. And we said, we're starting to explore this idea. What would be the power of the voice of the public markets? And we said, do you think that Apple would care if their shareholders wrote them a letter saying thank you for being the first mover on this deeply redemptive supply chain? And they're like, that would be amazing. And so we wrote that letter. It's not even public yet. And the rumblings of that letter moved Dell to come to the table and be a purchaser as well. And we went, wow, the voice of the public markets is more powerful than we realized, especially when we're saying thank you to accelerate meaningful solutions. So that was kind of some of the origin story of what does it look like to use our, to collaborate, where we've got on the one side unique information on what is ready to accelerate, and our friends in the public markets have a unique voice as shareholders at significant volume. And together we can accelerate really beautiful solutions.
Cool. That's amazing. Excited to hear about all these things happening with the public markets. Now, if I remember correctly, Eagle is not a public markets investment firm. Eagle invests in early stage software, but it was really your portfolio company that clued you in to this opportunity and gave you a desire to start engaging the public companies.
Absolutely. Yeah, our role is backing these early stage companies and being a leader in what is solving human trafficking. And it's our friends in the public market that have the voice there.
Nice. So at this point, how is Eagle taking action?
So we took from that first step in that first letter, we formalized into an actual alliance where Eagle brings the expertise and the knowledge around what are the solutions, and then the members come and actually subscribe to become members of this alliance and to put their voice. What they get out of it is a chance to have highly impactful stories for their investors. So many of them are asset managers at significant scale, and their investors really want powerful stories to how they express their values. Firms like Guidestone Asset Management and Evident and Brightlight, Wealth Squared, and others that have really taken a stand to say, my investors deeply want their values expressed in the public markets. And so that allows us to start building a pipeline of great stories that Eagle sources from our network. Like the first one that we just went public with was UPS. UPS has trained 230,000 employees, over 200,000 truck drivers, a couple thousand pilots, and some administrators to identify human trafficking in their network. Wow. Just really powerful example of a company saying, hey, I'm going to lead in this. It's possible for truck drivers to make a very meaningful difference because they're all over the country. They're the eyes and ears of this movement. And just a huge thank you from shareholders saying, I'm proud to own UPS because of this thing that you've done. And we went public with that just a few days ago. Some news sources have picked that up. And it's a beautiful way to show if UPS can do it, kind of a lot of questions for FedEx and Amazon and others are answered about, can this be done at scale? Oh yeah, it's been shown that it can be done at scale and it can be very effective. And our hope is that others will go, hey, I'd love a letter of thanks too. How do I get that? And we would love Amazon to be asking that question.
Nice. So when it comes down to the Eagle Freedom Alliance, the focus is really influencing the markets to make decisions around preventing like trafficking and slavery, or bringing more awareness to that. Is that kind of what you would see as the basic function? Or talk to me a little bit about like your vision for the future of the organization.
Absolutely. So the largest companies in the world that are publicly traded are great places to accelerate the best solutions to human trafficking. So we have a whole pipeline of, like, our friends at the Noble are training financial institutions to identify human crimes, and they have this designation called the Human Crime Specialist. And we're preparing letters of thanks to all the financial institutions that are leading at training human crime specialists to be able to identify crimes, because there's so many, there's actually hundreds of thousands of financial professionals that have unique information that might be helpful in the fight, and training that designation is incredibly powerful. There are public company after public company that have great opportunities to be able to accelerate the fight. So it's a lot of letters of thanks of examples like the UPSs and financial institutions of the world that are doing those incredible things. But then there are cases where we need to apply a little pressure. There's some gaming companies that I won't name out there that we're preparing letters of pressure as well. So it's both positive and negative.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, I think many listeners might know the Dirty Dozen lists, where an amazing organization in COSI looks at some of the things that are out there in the technology space, and kind of it goes more with the stick model, as it were, between the carrot and the stick, to encourage companies to make better decisions. And yet, you guys, it sounds like, are going forth with a different perspective.
I would say it's both. We are actually working on how we can collaborate on the Dirty Dozen, because what we're looking for is, it's not just, some people come to the public markets and they just say, you should do better. And COSI actually falls within our mandate because it's not just you should do better. It's very specific. Hey, Chromebooks should have this feature implemented, or the Apple Store should have this feature implemented. They're very specific about what they're looking for when they put somebody on the Dirty Dozen. So our mandate does include negative pressure or pressure to do something very specific. And in that case, we can really work beautifully with the amazing people at NCOSI. Where we can't, or where we're specifically avoiding, is these just capitalism should do better, you guys make a lot of money and you're terrible. Right. It's, hey, very specific action. Either thank you for taking it, we hope others will too, or hey, here's a very specific way for Marriott to reduce human trafficking in their brand, or something like that. So.
Nice. So you've talked about the logistics and transportation industry, so the eyes and ears and the truckers getting trained. You've talked a little bit about Apple and other technology companies have an opportunity to buy from redemptive mines, places where slavery is proven to not be happening, or like child exploitation is not happening. Can you give us some other examples of opportunities for the public markets to get involved?
One that we're very excited about is Lila Micklewade and the Justice Defense Fund and NCOSI. And there's a powerful group that have applied successfully a lot of pressure to the exploitation industry, most famously Pornhub. We're working with a couple of different players to be able to map how funding gets into the exploitation industry, and very specifically working with the major credit card providers, crypto exchanges where they're publicly traded, and a number of others, to be able to start cutting off the money flows into the exploitation industry. And then there's just kind of a treasure trove of opportunities within the big three industries that are exposed to human trafficking: are hospitality, finance, and transportation. Those are going to be the big ones in sex trafficking. Then we've got all the places where children are exposed to online harm. So it's the gaming industry, the social media industries. There's going to be a whole treasure trove of opportunities that are in pipeline already there. And then everybody who's sourcing from a third world country has exposures to human rights exploitations, and trying to build very specific data, not just that they should do better, but very specifically who's doing the best, where should they source from, and trying to accelerate those who are really, really succeeding at protecting the most vulnerable in supply chains.
Nice. So talk to me a little bit about who's involved. We know Eagle's involved, but who are some of the other organizations and companies that make up that $100 billion?
So Guidestone was the first pioneer to go with us. We've also got our friends at Evidencity Asset Management, and they're part of a network with Blue Trust and other amazing organizations. There's others that are in the process of signing on now that we're very excited about. So a great group that is coming together that already represents over 100 billion of assets under management or assets under advisement. So a great group, but also notably, it's not just them. It's also amazing nonprofits like the Noble and others who are leading in building the incredible solutions, and great for-profit companies as well, some of whom were invested, some of whom were not. That it's part of a network that is working on what are the highly scalable solutions to human trafficking.
Yeah, it's amazing to think the power of a signature on a letter. For a lot of people, you're like, it's just a piece of paper and it's just a pen. Why are a few more people signing on? And yet, I think back on a day like today, and I'm like, the Declaration of Independence was just a piece of paper and just a bunch of guys that put their signatures on it, and yet it transformed the world as we know it, especially here in America. And so really yet to be seen, in a sense of like how much this space has an opportunity to transform. And so for those who aren't very familiar with the public markets and with the why do you write letters and how you can speak, can you tell a little bit more about proxy voting and just the impact that this type of thing can have?
That's a great point. We probably should start there in the every share is basically a vote in how these organizations should be run. And there are many publicly traded companies whose revenue rival the GDP of many nations. So the vote that we have as shareholders on how these companies should be run are equivalent you could make a case, I guess, that they're equivalent in their sway to votes on small nations. Basically, wow. What should they value? What should they care about? And there's a proxy voting process on when things get put in place. So there's both just writing letters that bring awareness to that is not using the proxy voting process. That's using the public awareness of, hey, your shareholders care about this, and a thank you or bringing awareness. And then there's the actual proxy voting process where in many cases shareholders can actually submit to the proxy process to say, hey, we think that we should look at child labor in the DRC, or we think that we should conduct a study on this or that. In many cases, the board has a very scripted view of how they want their annual shareholder meeting to go. And so they'll do a lot to pull those things off the proxy ballot process. Jerry Boyer, for example, has gotten a lot of things moved in order to pull things off proxy voting processes. And so if you put it on the ballot, sometimes they'll make a change because they don't want to have that as a topic during the annual shareholder meeting. But there's a lot of power people don't realize that they have a bunch of votes. And it's really powerful to come alongside. Usually we're picking the asset manager. So we might go pick a Guidestone or an Eventide or a Vident and say, hey, this is the manager that I'm picking. And it's really important to pick a manager who votes in line with your values, or hopefully that uses your vote at all. Like some are just letting ISS or one of the really big voting groups to kind of take your vote. It's a little bit of wake up and realize that you've got a vote, and make sure that you're aligned with a manager who's using your votes in a way that align with your values.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, it's pretty exciting to think that your individual vote as a shareholder could make a difference. Do you have any examples of times in the past where, proxy voting or that sort of thing has actually swayed one of these mammoth companies?
Yeah, absolutely. There are cases where some large banks were specifically not willing to do business with certain groups that had conservative values, for instance. And and in that case, they were able to come and say, hey, we really want to take a look at this. We don't think that conservative values are something that the bank should be debanking, for instance. Now, human trafficking is something that we all agree about. It's not a conservative issue or a liberal issue. But that is an example where bringing a proxy vote caused a bank to go, oh, maybe this is something that we shouldn't be debanking people over. And there's a lot of examples of just kind of awareness and ranking systems really having a profound effect on how public companies act and how they respond to their shareholders.
Yeah. So looking at the big picture, what do you think Eagle Freedom Alliance has the potential to do over the next 5 or 10 years?
We absolutely see a day and coming very soon where public markets are in a race to make the most difference possible in taking care of vulnerable people, whether it's public companies racing to say who can protect children online and prevent harms the best, or public companies that are exposed to sex trafficking, like hospitality companies and transportation companies and finance companies racing for how they can play their role in fighting human trafficking and racing to get the best letters of accolades, and then same in the global supply chains, that there would be very real accountability for who's getting recognized for the things that they're doing, but also maybe who's getting letter of pressure to say, hey, your peers are doing exceptional things. Would you come and keep up with them in ways that are good for business, good for the marketplace, and most importantly, good for the most vulnerable people in our supply chains and that are exposed to these atrocities.
Man, sounds really, really important and really a huge opportunity that's not being taken advantage of yet. So excited to see this come to light.
There's a huge opportunity in the hospitality industry, both to preserve shareholder value and to decimate human trafficking. We're seeing a fair amount of data that 60 to 90% of, or it's probably well north of 60, a huge portion of sex trafficking in the U.S., the victims either are sold out of a hospitality establishment or transit through a hospitality establishment. Just huge portion are exposed to hospitality. And the hospitality industry has an exceptional front row seat, both to liabilities if they don't make a difference, where they're getting hit in court left and right. Hundreds of court cases open or already settled around this issue. And 80 to 90% of the insurance industry has actually cut their liability specifically on this issue, which skyrockets the danger for the owner or the brand if one of these hundreds of court cases come out against them. So from a shareholder perspective, tons of incentive to get ahead of this issue. And then from a actually making a difference perspective, this is where the front lines are happening. If we have well-trained hotels with great technical systems to be able to see what's happening under their nose and great collaboration to be able to solve this issue, we have a chance for this industry to be absolutely heroic in making it much more difficult to traffic our brothers and sisters right under our nose.
Wow. So quick question then. Aside from the actual public markets advocacy, will Eagle Freedom Alliance also recommend like action steps to take?
Absolutely. I mean, mostly there's so much power in taking the people who are doing the best and showing that it's possible, because you eliminate all these questions about, is it possible? Can a big brand do it? All these different things. If you find one heroic company who steps out like Apple did in the East Africa supply chain, it's not just us saying, the bleeding heart saying it would be possible to ethically source out of East Africa. It's saying it not only is it possible, but Apple's doing it. Pressure's on. Everybody else needs to keep up. So primarily we're looking for where are the innovators partnering with public companies already, because so many questions about plausibility, scalability, viability go away when you see an Apple doing it. So that's our primary mode of bringing publicity, is where people are already doing something. We're also kind of looking for ways to help more pioneering happen. But the low-hanging fruit is who's already doing great things, and we just need to shine a spotlight on it. I think in most cases, there's a high alignment between mitigating human rights abuses risks and that aligning with shareholder value. Like, just think about the hospitality industry. If you got, estimates are well north of 1 million people being trafficked in the United States. Each case is settling at least in the high hundreds of thousands. Averages are probably closer to 2 to 3 million per case right now. If you're a Marriott right now, it's an existential threat to your brand, that the amount of liability that could take the brand down. That is a very real shareholder risk right now if they don't figure that out. So being able to be a market leader in solving that radically mitigates one of the risks to you as a shareholder. So high alignment in many cases between interest as a shareholder and desire to solve the issue. And that's part of what's so exciting, is that we can come as shareholders and say, not only do we as shareholders really, really appreciate Apple that you're solving an issue, we also think it mitigates a very real risk. If people believe that this iPhone is built with truly ethical supply chains, it's worth more than if people go, I read Cobalt Red and I think that Apple's part of that problem. We absolutely believe that iPhone is worth 5, 10, 20 something percent more if people truly believe that it's ethically sourced.
For those who don't know, what drew you into starting Eagle Freedom Alliance in the first place? Like, what drew your heart into this counter-trafficking industry?
I mean, my origin story starts on the battlefield, where I saw ISIS fighting. ISIS was using children in combat. I was in the Navy before I was a venture capitalist, before I was a financial advisor as well. And really seeing, I had a chance in the Philippines to be part of supporting the Filipino military's fight against ISIS, and ISIS was using children in combat there. And that origin story really got me hunting for solutions to some of the darkest crimes on the planet. And we talk a lot about we're running towards some of the hardest problems on the planet. That's kind of just the culture of Eagle. The legend has it that eagles, when there's a big storm brewing, that there's one bird that flies towards the storm and just soars to incredible heights because they go straight at the storm and have the strength to catch those updrafts and go to incredible heights. And that's kind of the culture at Eagle is when everybody else is running, we're headed towards it, and we believe there's a chance to catch the updrafts and soar to incredible heights because we're going towards problems that everyone else is running from.
Dude, amazing. So from fighting for your country to working for investors and helping to build their portfolios, and now to fighting for vulnerable people by stepping into the public markets advocacy. Sounds like Eagle continues to just go after challenges and take risks in order to make the world a better place.
That's our goal. We're fighting for it every day.
Awesome. Well, Wes, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate you helping us dive into the public markets, the opportunities with Eagle Freedom Alliance, and some of the exciting things that are coming soon. And people could go, if they're interested in learning more, people could go where to get information?
EagleFreedomAlliance.com.
Okay, EagleFreedomAlliance.com. The new website's up. Go check it out. Thanks for your time, Wes.